Should those coming to Bangalore necessarily learn Kannada?
Is Hindi versus Kannada actually linguistic politics or only politics?
सेनानियों ने राजभाषा की कल्पना की थी और राजभाषा के रूप में हिंदी को स्वीकार.
There have been only 2 prime ministers from South India. That shows the lack of representation as well.
Tamil Nadu puts 1 rupee and we get 30 to 35 paise back.
That unity in diversity needs to be respected even at a micro level.
Even if they are understanding Hindi or English, they are reluctant enough to speak out in that.
But haven't we seen examples of majoritarian linguistic domination leading to civil unrest?
Hello and welcome to Unacademy, our one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. Hindi and English are the 2 official languages of the Union. Hindi, however, is not the national language of India. But should it be declared as such? That's something that we shall be debating today. Joining me on this program, 2 of our educators representing the viewpoint coming from the Hindi heartland. My friends on my right, Mukesh sir and Abhishek sir. Joining me on this program to my left will represent the viewpoints emerging from the south of India. Chetan sir and Sham sir, welcome to this program, and this is a face-off between the right and the left. Starting with you, Mukesh sir, Hindi is not the national language of the Union. There has been a demand, particularly coming from political class from the north of India, that it should be declared as the national language. What is your take on this matter?
When it comes to it being declared as a national language, I feel that is maybe a debate for something on another day. But when we talk about Hindi, the utilization of Hindi as a mode of communication in various different parts of the country, I feel as a language, what is the basic purpose that it solves? It is a mode to communicate. That's it. If it is seen as anything else, as maybe an imposition of culture, etc., that is when it will gain an intrusive character. But then it should be referred to as a common language of communication, linking different parts of the country together. Because when we talk about our country, we always pride ourselves in unity and diversity. We are a diverse nation. But we should also at the same time have a common platform with which we are able to communicate with each other. So that is where I feel that Hindi has got much greater utilization in today's time, when the migration of people from different parts of the country in search of jobs, in search of better livelihoods, there should be a greater or a general acceptance of a normal medium of communication.
So Hindi not as a national language, but should be declared as a linked language, which can link the 2 Indias, the south and the north, as well as the northeast as well. That's what you say?
Yes, that link language is the term that you have used, is very, very important, because anything other than that vitiates the very basic purpose that the language serves. It is not an imposition of culture, it is not an imposition of any particular idea, but that link which will connect the various parts of the country together. That is where the utility of Hindi comes in.
On the 29th of November, Unacademy IAS English team is launching a comprehensive preparation program to crack CSE 2026. With hand on my heart, this is the only subscription you need to crack the exam in the first attempt. What gives me this confidence? Well, I'm placing my bets on this program. If you don't crack the exam in 2026, we shall extend your subscription by another year without any fee. Join this program now if IAS is your dream, and this subscription is available at an all-time low fee of 32,999. Previously, we have given discounts, let's say 23,999, but for a 12-month subscription. This time, it is 32,999 for a 2+1 year subscription. Join now. Let's start with Indian polity on the 29th of November, and together, let's crack it. Shamsad, let me draw you into this debate. What's your take on this Hindi imposition that some political parties in south of India have been advocating for a long time? And that is why we have Hindi and English as the two official languages of the Union. Otherwise, Hindi alone was meant to be the official language of the Union. What is your take on this Hindi imposition?
If you look at the overall Indian polity, the concern from the southern part of India is that it's not just the language, but overall it will be an impact on the culture of the parts of India. The southern states, in terms of, let's say, number of seats in the Lok Sabha, we have lesser number of seats. In terms of, let's say, allocation of the funds, lesser funds are allocated. And even in other, let's say, situations, whenever the central government assistance is supposed to be provided, generally there's a feeling that the center provides more of assistance to these states where Hindi is a language and lesser assistance, stepmotherly treatment to the southern states in India. Now, if the language is also made Hindi and it is made as either a national language or a link language, whatever it is, it will further lead to the thinking that there is an imposition on us. And this will further lead to the differences. It will lead to frictions between the groups of people who are present not only in northern part but also in the southern part of India. For example, let's say whenever the funds are allocated by Finance Commission, recommendations of it, generally the southern
Finance
states.
Commission is an independent constitutional entity. There is no political interference per se.
Yes. Issue is that whenever the funds are allocated, no doubt they take multiple criteria to allocate the funds. But we see that most of the funds are going to the states where people are speaking Hindi, and lesser amount of funds are going to the states which have controlled population or essentially the southern Indian states.
Or you do not look at it this way, that these are the states where a massive amount of funds are being channeled by the Finance Commission. These are more deserving in terms of their population, in terms of their per capita income, in terms of their standard of living. Or do you see as a political decision to grant more funds to those who speak one language, which is Hindi?
Argument is, when you allocate the funds based on the recommendations of the Finance Commission, one of the very important parameters is population, which is given a very high weightage, 45%. And post 1971, the control of the population is done in a much better way in a southern part of India compared to northern part of India, which also happens to be Hindi speaking belt. So because of that, the funds more and more are going to those states, whereas in terms of contribution of GDP.
But we'll come to the funding part slightly later. We're specifically focused on language. What is your position on Hindi becoming a national language, or for that matter, link language, which can link different parts of the country together?
So without Hindi as a link language or even a national language, we have survived, we have thrived, we have become one of the largest economies in the world. So if the argument is we can prosper better, we are already doing that. Then what is the point of imposing that language on certain population which doesn't want to? That will basically lead to more frictions which might actually hamper the economic growth, migration, etc., rather than doing better for the economy.
Abhishek sir, you are from the north of India and you have been working in South India for many years now. Have you faced any discrimination at the hands of the localites when it comes to, for example, access to an apartment, cabs, or for that matter, your day-to-day activities?
Sir, this is not specific to South India that way. This would be something which would be common in all states. If I am from a specific belt going into be it Tamil Nadu, Karnataka or be it Kerala, if I speak the language, it creates a certain cultural link that allows you to bond with that person. That may be a factor which some people may find it to be favorable. But I've not per se faced discrimination in this city or in this is something where we have to understand what Shyamsa said is a matter of optics. How he linked language with funds and how he linked everything with language. It's not about that. The basic point is that how funds are allocated, as you said, Finance Commission has its own principles. By chance that there is a certain allocation to a certain state which speaks Hindi or majority speaks Hindi is based on multiple factors. So we have to be a little bit, you can say, we have to remove the emotion here because the Hindi part of it and the allocation or the politics part of it is actually different. So there is a certain...
But language is an emotional issue. How can you delink it?
That is true, sir. But therein, there has to be a certain understanding that there is no conscious policy that there is an imposition. There is a coincidence. You can call it an imposition. That is a part of where you're looking from. It's a matter of perspective. But as you said, if I'm in Karnataka, if I'm in Kerala, if I speak the language, it will always be something nice. If it may be true for Rajasthan also. In Bengal and any part of India, if I speak that language, I will be given a certain favorable treatment.
How would you react and feel if tomorrow Hindi is declared as the national language of India?
It would be against the principle of unity in diversity.
How?
India doesn't need one language. As I would agree with Shyam sir here, that what makes India India is its diversity. And one language.
And how would Hindi becoming a national language be an assault on unity and diversity?
Because it therefore.
I'm just playing a devil's advocate.
I understand that, sir. But the point is that by proving that Hindi is per se the language which has chosen as the national language, it creates a certain, you can say, optics where people would believe that their personal space is being impinged upon. This is where language in public.
So you would feel bad and sad if tomorrow
it is not
declared
being
as the
bad.
national
It's not being bad or sad. As an academician, I would believe that it is something where the state's role stops, wherein the state should not go into the private and decide for me or Chetan sir or Shyam sir what language do we speak.
In fact, if I can pitch in here, the question you asked that ever have you faced any difficulty based on the fact that you don't know the regional language, I have. Being in southern part of the country, if you, let's suppose in any particular state, if you are not knowing the local language, you will face an issue when it comes to dealing with the administration, be it kind of a very simple thing like lodging an FIR. You can basically be made to sit in the police station for hours just because you are unable to communicate. That is where I will come back to the point that rather than terming it as a national language, which can be very polarizing, it should be termed as something of a link whereby people are able to communicate. Because the lack of communication oftentimes brings about differences which are unwanted in a society. We can take the case across the world. Let's take the case of, for example, Europe. Europe has got many small countries, but you will also see in European nations languages such as German. They oftentimes serve as a bridge between the different countries, population of different demographies. They are able to interact, work in different areas in a very cordial manner. Now here, let's suppose you want to settle down in one of the particular states in southern part of the country. It is absolutely logical for you and it is required for you to learn the local language to get attuned with the local customs. But let's suppose you have migrated there or moved there for a temporary basis. In that situation, it should not be made a precondition that unless and until you know the local language, you are at a disadvantage.
Has anyone forced you to learn the local language?
It has not come to that case that someone has forced, but as I told you, there are difficulties faced in terms of the day-to-day matters, be it dealing with the administration, be it, let's suppose, going for an official registration, and if you are not knowing the language, that becomes that much difficult for you. And I will tell you one of the personal experiences. Whenever I have to deal with any part of the administration in southern part, I do ensure that I do bring along or tag along an individual who knows the language. Because
it may also be because the official you are dealing with, he doesn't know the language that you speak. He doesn't know English.
Yes.
He knows only the local language.
Absolutely.
So it may not be a biased response from the administration.
No.
It may just be a natural instinct of an individual to speak
Exactly.
only the language that he knows.
Sir, as a
But a very
counterpoint,
important point that this is not specific to the peninsula sector. This would be specific to every state.
Yes.
This is where it's a matter of optics. When we talk about Hindi, for example, if in eastern parts or in western parts, there is no optics of imposition. However, in peninsula sector, there is a certain optics where we are trying to impose or we undercoat the government of India.
Let me bring in Chetan sir here. You heard what Mukesh sir had to say.
Yeah.
And there is also of late instances where there is a road rage and non-Kannada speaking population, they are subjected to mistreatment. Would you agree with that perception, or you think that this is just an aberration, or would you feel that this is the tip of the iceberg? There is something more than what we are not able to see right now. There is language-based chauvinism developing in southern part of India.
As you correctly mentioned, this is a much deep-rooted issue. There are socio-cultural, economic and political root causes which is driving this phenomena. As you said in Bangalore, for example, of late there have been certain incidents which have blown up on social media where apparently local cab drivers, auto drivers have taken it out on outsiders, or rather I would not like to use the term outsiders. I think natives and non-natives would be a better term because that would be very exclusionary.
Why should I speak in Hindi? Okay. Why should I speak in Hindi? Okay. So
You have to speak in Kannada.
No, we will not speak in Kannada. Why we will speak in Kannada?
आप बांग्लादेश में नहीं हो, you are in India.
আপনারা সবাই যাবেন
West Bengal is a part of India. You must be learning
আপনারা বলুন
Hindi.
আপনারা
आपको बंगाली आता है, हिंदी नहीं आता इंडिया में रह के?
But at a local level, because I'm a localite, I've interacted with the people here. So the sense I get from them, right, the perception they have is that the outsiders are imposing themselves, snatching away their land, their culture. And this has to do with the socio-economic divisions which have come up as well in cities like Bangalore. I'll just like to take you back in time. At one point, Bangalore or Karnataka for that matter, or in general South India for that matter, was very welcoming. It was, in fact, if you take Bangalore for example, it was always a cosmopolitan place since colonial times. Even the Wadiyars, right, they would be welcoming of outsiders. It was one place where outsiders would rise up in administrative positions without any resentment from locals. And let me tell you, that was not the case in many other princely states and provinces. So if you look at it that way, Bangalore was always seen as a pensioner's paradise, somewhere where all cultures, all languages were welcomed. But this trend has changed, as I see personally, post 1990s. So I feel somewhere liberalization, globalization definitely has had an impact as Bangalore opened up as a IT hub, and in general South Indian states performed much better compared to, let's say, North Indian states. There were of course job opportunities created, there was migration that happened, which was good for the country, but at some level the locals, they felt left out, especially let's say those who are from the rural belt, Mandya, Hassan, towards these areas. They would feel that someone from Delhi or UP is coming, getting a good job. Of course, no discredit to them. It's through hard work that they would have risen up. But as a localite, when they see others growing up, buying properties, becoming richer, they feel they are losing out. They feel they are being left out. So there are different socio-economic aspects involved, and as you said, language is emotive. The moment these divisions come up, political parties, these fringe vigilante groups, they capitalize on it. They politicize the issue and they reap the political dividends. We have seen that happening in many states.
Now, when you say Bangalore has developed, would you not also credit the non-natives in making Bangalore
Yes.
what it is today?
Absolutely.
Without their contribution, maybe Bangalore would not have risen
been
to this level.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
So how would you deal with the sentiments of those who feel that they have been left out? Their land, their jobs, their dignity has been snatched by non-natives. It seems that it is just the feeling that they have, which is far
disconnected from the reality. Yeah, these perceptions, right? It could be real or it could be just a perceived notion. But at the end of the day, that's what has an impact on the street. A cab driver sees that outsiders are doing better than he is doing, and they're not getting the same kind of opportunities, and they feel left out, and maybe that turns into rage eventually.
So what is your take if Hindi becomes the national language?
I have no problems per se with Hindi being a national language, or like Mukesh sir aptly put it, as a link language. But as a South Indian, what we get a sense is that sometimes there is a forced imposition. For example, again, I'll take you back.
Just to interrupt, what would be the best phrase? South Indian or an Indian from south of India?
Indian from south of India.
Then why do you call it South Indian?
But that has been the common debate, North versus South.
Please continue.
So I don't fall into that category. I completely disagree with that. I'm also honestly disgusted by the militant regional linguism that has been seen in Karnataka and in many other states as well. But again, as you said, for Hindi to be seen as a national language or a link language, it would be practical for practical purposes, administrative reasons. It's absolutely fine. But when someone says, let's take day-to-day life, for example. Let's say a worker from UP, IT worker from UP is settled in Bangalore. He's taking a cab ride and he expects the cab driver to talk in Hindi or English, which the cab driver may not be able to do. So that is a genuine grievance, and there have been instances where they have been expected or forced to know Hindi or English. So this is a case of imposition and counter-imposition, right? And this, I think, applies universally as well.
In this case, I would basically, we are moving into socio-economic aspects of this discussion. But let me bring the topic of language back. Just for instance, today one of the most widely spoken languages is English. Imagine a world 100 years back or somewhere where English would have closed itself to outside interferences. Today you see every year English includes the official dictionary does include many of the other words from other languages. What it does, it increases the scope of the language, it makes the language more universal. We have seen in our own country, many languages have died a premature death because they were very closed from outside interferences. And this is where I argue that even when we talk about the native languages in southern part of the country, I argue that they will benefit from the cultural influences from other part of the country, not necessarily from the Hindi belt, but from various different parts.
I get your point. In fact, Indians speak better English than the English.
Absolutely.
But you are advocating what Shyam sir would advocate. Why don't then non-Kannada speaking population in Karnataka speak Kannada?
Absolutely. What I am saying is,
learn it, embrace it.
Yes.
And that is how Kannada will not become in a cocoon, will
Right.
be exposed to outside influence as well.
But imagine the plight of an individual, let's suppose, who has just come out of his college or her college, and he or she gets a job in Bangalore. Now, he or she, they are expected to learn Kannada in a short span of time.
They're not expected to because nobody is forcing them.
No, that is
That
where
is the expectation
nowadays the situation is getting so vitiated that there is a basic expectation that you should be communicating in Kannada, otherwise you are at a disadvantage.
Let's suppose there is a Tamilian who goes to Delhi, visits a tea stall, asks for a cup of tea, and what is the language that he or she would be speaking? Clearly not Tamil.
Broken English,
Broken English or
Yes.
Hindi.
maybe, or most of the cases you will see
And
broken
then
English.
their expectation is that once you come to the south of India, you
Right.
would speak in the language which is either English or the local South Indian language. But is it also true, or maybe, that there are people from the north of India who come to the south of India and deliberately start speaking their own language to try and impose their language because they feel that they are entitled to it because
Yeah.
they have the
But sir,
backing from the political class in North
personal
India.
decision. That is where there are two things which I would say. First is the generalization. There can be people in both the parts of India who may be on the understanding that I want to impose my language. That is one thing. The other thing is the way native, non-native is being defined here itself is linguistically. That itself is problematic because is it domicile or is it language that you want to define native, non-native? Because categories matter. And somehow in North, we don't create native, non-native on based on linguistic understanding, rather domicile. But as soon as we move a little bit southwards, there is this language concept. So this is where the argument that this category exists of native, non-native.
I totally disagree with that, Abhishek sir.
Sir.
You seem to indicate that the native, non-native discrimination is limited to the south of India.
No, it is not.
It is not.
No.
Because that's what your statement seemed
No,
to indicate.
I just want
Because
to
as
say
a
that
South Indian in Delhi, we have faced that kind of discrimination.
That-
at
sir,
a
that
national
is
to add a
totally
point,
agreed.
Just to
That-
add a point here, some time ago, the cases in Bangalore where road rash cases were cited. The same kind of cases you can find even in other states. If you go to, let's say, Gurugram or Noida, there the cases will be much more grievier, or let's say there will
But
be
is
lot
it
of
based on the
damages.
aspect
Yes.
that
Is
they
it
don't know the
based-
language?
That is what I'm
It
trying
is,
to
or
say.
is it
Sir,
simply
I
a
have cases
Sir,
which have
as
happened.
Mukesh sir was pointing out, he faces difficulty with the administration in Bangalore. We have faced similar instances, or I know people who have faced similar instances with landlords in Delhi.
No, how do you feel? I want to get your insights on that. How do you feel when all the inhabitants of the south of India, they're labeled as Madrasis?
That's again a racial stereotype.
That is
It's a generalization. So obviously it feels demeaning. It undermines your cultural identity,
Sir,
the
to
land where
add
you
to
come
that,
from.
the argument is already we are clubbed into one group that we are Madrasi.
Madrasi.
We belong to, let's say, somebody from Kerala, somebody from Karnataka. Everybody has a different identity, but we are clubbed
Everybody
into one.
eats idli.
Everybody eats idli.
But here I would argue.
I'll then ask both of you a very simple question, which is that if
Let me interrupt you here. Sorry, because Sham sir is about to complete his statement. Yes, Sham sir.
So the argument is we are clubbed into one. So we have a grievance against that. And second, let's assume a UPSC aspirant. I'm writing a UPSC exam. The question paper is either in English or Hindi. What about a student who can't understand a question in English but he doesn't know Hindi? So already there is a thought that this is being imposed. Whether you declare it as a national language or a link language, doesn't matter. We have a feeling that
So
it is
here-
already imposed.
Here,
Now,
what I would like to make a point is the entire debate in itself that is not doing service to the South Indian languages, which I feel. For example, when you are in a way imposing that anyone who is coming to Karnataka should be talking in Kannada or at least should be knowing the basics of Kannada, isn't it that we are homogenizing Kannada as the language of entire Karnataka? What about languages like Konkani? What about languages like Tulu? Isn't it that under the overall umbrella of Kannada, these languages are slowly and steadily dying because the entire debate is whether you know Kannada or not. And if there is an outside imposition of the culture, what about those microcosms within Karnataka who have a different dialect, who have a different language? Maybe they don't speak Kannada, but then overall what tends to happen? That you identify the entire state with a homogeneous language.
the same
So
argument,
That
sir.
is not at all the debate.
I understand.
It's about getting respect for the language.
Yes.
Because again, what you are saying is a very narrower view. If you look at where this started, it goes all the way back to 90s and early 2000, when the initial migrant workers who came in, right, the localites, some of them would feel that their language is not getting the same treatment, same respect. Where outsiders, especially from the Hindi belt, would expect Kannadigas to speak Hindi or English, and they would not put in the slightest effort to learn even conversational Kannada.
And here Shyam sir, when he made a point, for example, that a UPSC aspirant, when he or she appears in the exam, their paper is in either, the questions are in either English or Hindi. I would argue that to the north of Tropic of Cancer, if you take the entire part of the country, it is not that Hindi is the native language of the larger section of the population. Hindi is the language of a very small area. If you talk about the west, Gujarati is the language that they want to communicate in. If you talk about the east, so there the people, just again I would harp back to the link language aspect. There has to be a language which links. Otherwise, a country.
Sir, in that case,
Or
So
let
in
it
that
be
case,
the individual choice of two people communicating. Let them decide in which language they want
Absolutely.
to communicate in.
Absolutely.
Without
in that
the
case-
government at the center or the state governments insisting on a
So I
particular
want to-
language,
Right.
then it will come organically without the government to take a decision whether it should be a national language or the link language.
True, and here I would also argue the entire concept
Then
that,
that defeats your whole argument that Hindi should be declared as a link language,
yeah.
because then it will all boil down to the individual choice that two people who are communicating will take.
sir,
Yes.
when you say that, you are talking about Kannada, what about other languages? I can put the same argument when you talk about Hindi, what about other languages in northern part of India?
absolutely.
So that's the reason I said, let's not decide anything. We have progressed for last 70 years with the same kind of a setup.
But should there be a resistance which is being faced as of now that anybody speaking in Hindi in the southern part of the country, they are being looked down upon, or there is a preconceived notion that the person is against the culture
there
of
is
the
no
particular
absolute-
region.
But I'll add one more layer into this, which is that it's Hindi Kannada we are talking about.
But I'm loving this debate.
But today, if we remove Hindi from this perspective, let's add Tamil or Malayalam or Telugu. Will we have the same rhetoric as of right
Absolutely.
now?
Absolutely.
Sir, it
Even
will
then,
continue
it
to
will.
exist. Like you're saying, there is a kind of thought that somebody comes from northern part of India, they should speak in Kannada, otherwise they will be left out. It's not that only people who speak Kannada have progressed in Karnataka. Everybody has progressed.
Let me tell you
it's
something.
a boiling pot. In the same way, somebody who is very good skilled moves from southern part of India to, let's say, northern state. They also have progressed. So the argument is not that only those people who don't know Kannada are targeted.
But here you are
let me
contradicting
just add-
yourself, sir. You are contradicting yourself because when you are saying that people can progress based upon the skill, then where does that entire question of the grievance that outsiders have
Yes,
come upon and they have
I'll
taken
tell
the
you, sir.
land, etc.?
I told you there is already a grievance because of these issues. Now, if you declare that Hindi is either a national language or a link language, you're basically putting kerosene into fire.
Yes, don't declare it,
Uh-huh.
but let there be a medium for communication through
In
different
that case,
parts
why
of the
not
country.
English?
And again,
in that
just
case,
to
why
add,
not
we
English?
are narrowing down the debate only to Kannada versus Hindi.
Yes.
Let
That
me
is
just
what
add
I
something
want.
interesting. This exists even, let's say, between South Indian languages as well.
True.
Kannadigas feel Tamilians are more dominant. Tamilians have grievances against Kannadigas as well. So
Which
this
is not just on Kaveri.
not just on the
Not
Kaveri
just
issue,
on Kaveri,
on the basis of language. Because I think this is where I feel language is a much bigger part of our lives. It's not just about the medium of communication. It is connected to our culture, our society, eventually land and economy as well.
So, but then individual success and my choice to be in a certain part of country, how is it then being linked to the fact that I am imposing my culture on that as an individual, not as a group? I understand both of your perspectives and I agree with Shamsa also that India's diversity is its strength,
Yes.
and therefore homogenization will never do anything. But coming back to the point is that individually, if I get a job, for example, not in Karnataka, in Tamil Nadu, I go there, I work for 3 years, knowing that I will go back. So I choose to not learn the language because I know that is a temporary arrangement. However, if I buy land, obviously I will make an effort to learn the language.
One should.
Okay.
One should.
learn the language.
So therefore, my individual success in this state, in this city, and my choice to stay here because I like the city, I like the culture, I love the city, should not be linked to the fact that I speak one or the other language.
What is the cultural thing that you like in Bangalore?
Sir, it is multicultural. It is very going beyond Bangalore itself. You have the coast, you have the mountains, you have food. I would
The fine
rather
arts
yes,
of
fine arts, sir.
Karnataka.
The standard of living today in Bangalore, it is a hill station, sir. I don't need to even go out.
But also, I
The
would.
point is, if there are migrants who are coming from different parts of the country to, let's say, Chennai or Hyderabad or Bangalore, and it will be flooded by those who don't speak this language, how will then the localites be in a position to preserve their identity, preserve their culture, preserve their language? And it is a constitutionally guaranteed fundamental right.
But sir, you are presuming that every migrant is literate. You are presuming that there's not every migrant is an IT person. For example, the labor which is needed here has to come from somewhere. If it is coming from north, you can't expect a person from XYZ state, a person who's coming seasonal male migration circular, to speak Kannada. That is
But nobody is insisting on these people who
Sir, just like
migrate
when
to
you say
Karnataka
Hindi
to
should
speak
be a
in
link
Kannada.
language.
That is the problem. That is the problem. If there is no one who is imposing that you speak in the local language, Bangalore had been the heaven for migrant workers of various different strata of the society. Why is it that now today we are speaking about this? Why is it that we are holding a debate about it today?
Because the government is insisting on Hindi becoming a national language, because the LIC website has only Hindi and English.
But that
In
is
the
the
This is
official
official
where, this is
language.
where
That's
it is
an official
about
language.
taking a narrative and running away with it.
Yes.
So basically,
Optics.
if you think about it, yes, pure optics.
Pure optics.
Because LIC after that
For
issued
you,
a statement.
for you, it may be optics, but to my left, it may be part of their identity.
confirmation
They want to
confirmation of a
conserve.
particular bias or a confirmation of a particular
Okay,
viewpoint.
by
sir, let's put
announcing
this to
the-
test. Let's put this to test.
Right.
You have been in Karnataka for a long time.
Right.
How many languages can you speak?
I'll not show up and say that I know Portuguese, but Portuguese.
No. I'm not
English.
talking about Indian languages.
Sir, I know Hindi. That is also not my mother tongue, to
Right.
be very clear.
Right.
I know Hindi, I know English. And thereafter, I make my efforts to learn whatever Kannada Gotilla standard things which I try to
Sir,
learn.
in my
I
case,
make an effort.
I
Let me
know,
tell you,
but
but
I know
don't
Bengali.
plan to.
I know. I speak Mathili.
Ah.
I know Bengali. I can speak. Mathili is my mother tongue. I can speak Hindi. I can speak English. So there goes 4 languages.
Right.
How long
That's-
have you been in Bangalore?
Bangalore, I think I have been around 3 years, 4 years in my life.
But
Now-
you have also studied in Karnataka,
Karnataka.
right?
Yes, yes.
For him,
If you
for him.
include those years, then how many years have you been in Karnataka?
Then
Now
it
let me
takes
tell
So you are
two
boxed
plus-
out now. You're
Why
boxed out.
did you not take an effort to learn this language?
Because also I will tell you the logistical issue with which many of the people, non-natives, they face.
Although I agree, it's your choice. You don't
Yeah.
want to learn this language, that's your call.
True. And when you ask that why haven't you learnt it, isn't that again the confirmation of the same bias?
No, why?
that you should?
Because when I talk to the people left of me, they know Hindi as well. Because
My
for some
point was-
years they have been staying in
And
Delhi.
it's not just Hindi. Let's say, as a Bangalorean, even though I'm a Kannadiga, I can speak Telugu, understand Tamil, have basic conversation in Malayalam, speak Hindi as well. It's about the willingness, which is not generally seen.
but sir, did
again,
you
not
see a
my personal
pattern there?
opinion, but
Did you
that's what
see a
locals
pattern?
feel.
So to paraphrase
But
for
there's a
my
pattern.
audience, you are saying that people in South India, they are more willing
More
to learn
willing
Hindi
to-
Which is
and other
again a
languages.
generalization.
Which is not the case with you.
Sir, but the point
But
is,
he just proved this on the show.
he
No,
knows,
no.
he knows Bengali method because he comes from a state which is nearby, which speaks Bengali.
What about you?
My Bhojpuri and Hindi, but
Sir, that's what we are saying.
the point
Just-
Your state is not on the borders with Portugal.
the point is, sir, that when he said that he knows these 3 languages, what is common to is that his birthplace is Karnataka. Therefore, he knows the languages.
So you're
in and around
categorizing all
Karnataka.
South Indians as
No,
Madrasis again.
no. In and around Karnataka, you know the languages. We
Sir,
know.
that's what we are saying. What we are saying is, just like we are not imposing, let's say, Kannada on you, we don't want to impose. In the same way, you don't say that Hindi should be a
we
linked
aren't
language.
imposing, sir.
Don't say that Hindi
that's
should
what
be
my
a
argument
like
is,
national
that
language.
nobody should impose. I think
Yeah,
we
that
all
is a-
agree
we
on
all
that
agree on
formula.
this. We all agree on this.
And
But then
in the same way-
problem arises.
That's the difference between educated people and those people who are part of the vigilante groups.
Yes.
Force
Yes.
Yes.
is not something that we advocate on this platform.
Yes.
What you're advocating for is Hindi to become a link language.
Yes.
I
You
don't
may be-
advocate that also, sir.
It should
I
not be
just say-
declared as a
I
linked
just-
language. Any declaration for
Is a
that
problem.
matter will always seem as an imposition. Even, for example, even
Sham sir is vehemently against declaration of any sort.
absolutely, I am
So
I'm with
is
Sham,
Chetan, sir.
I am with them.
I'm with them, sir.
I'm with them.
I would
Then
just
where
say-
is the debate?
The debate is
the point
debate
is, state policy should never dictate linguistics because it is a personal decision.
Sir, I'll tell you why that happens. This idea of a Hindi versus Kannada, it never existed until recently. When centers started talking about, let's say, Hindi should be declared as this, automatically this will add fuel to certain.
Was
what
there
you are
any
doing-
official statement issued by
Yes,
the
whether-
government?
The Union Home Minister clearly made a statement that Hindi should be the
Was it in his official capacity or
Sir,
as
whether
a
it is-
leader of a political
But what
party?
is-
Sir,
irony of
You
that
have to
story is
identify
that-
both
Either
of them.
ways,
Because
ah.
if you take a look at the neighboring state of Tamil Nadu, the debate with regards to Hindi versus Tamil has been raging for decades now, right?
Yes.
Now, is that made on the official capacity or in the political capacity?
But eventually, what will people perceive on the ground?
That
A
is
common
what-
man.
Chetan sir,
Sir, the irony of that
Chetan
story
sir and
is
Sham
that
sir,
his mother tongue is not Hindi.
when there
Yeah.
was anti-Hindi agitation in Madras, it was then Madras, pension was provided to those who burned Hindi portraits
Yeah.
and pamphlets and started committing violence against those who speak Hindi. Is that form of extreme linguistic nationalism to be supported or to be condemned?
Absolutely. Absolutely no. Absolutely no.
There is no place for that kind of, let's say, agitation. Again, I'm reiterating this. The only reason this debate has risen again is because of certain statements from certain people who do not belong to southern part of India and they are in a position of power. If somebody, a layman, talks about it, nobody cares. Somebody in power talks about it, everybody will care. For example, very recently, the 3 criminal codes were announced. Our argument will be, why was it named in Hindi? Somebody from southern part of India, first of all, you make fun of us because we can't speak in proper language. Our accent is heavily influenced by our mother tongue. And now you name your laws also in Hindi. Now, if I make a mistake, I don't want to pronounce Hindi words. Then why that kind of an imposition?
Why were the 3 codes named in Hindi?
Sir, but that is where state politics, a certain party's decision to do something is being generalized on the population of north of Tropic
Yes.
of Cancer. That is where I'm trying to.
Where is this Tropic of Cancer?
The point is that Shyam sir is making a very valid point. Imposition is bad of anything, not even language. Everything imposed is not good. The second thing which comes here is that there is a certain generalization which is happening, that if the government is doing something, both of us are trying to do something. That is technically not true. When it comes to migrant politics, sir, there has to be a understanding that there are people who are coming under single male migration. They will go back. If there's an expectation for them to learn Kannada or Tamil, there should be some provision to do that.
Let me make a larger point here. If you take a look at the rise and the fall of
Why are you always
societies.
interrupting him?
Because I'm trying to give a much larger point.
Now you can continue.
So whenever you take a look at
A dose of laughter because it's a serious
yeah,
conversation.
true. So the rise and fall of societies throughout the pages of history, you'll find whenever any society has become slightly closed in terms of the approach of the people moving in, that society has been marked by a downfall eventually. For example, in our own case, one of the first cosmopolitans of the country was what? Mumbai. Why? It was welcoming for people from all parts of the country without discrimination. That particular city had basically sky as the limit, but then it hit a kind of a barrier as soon as there was discrimination against people coming from the south into Mumbai. Mumbai did not grow. For decades, Mumbai's growth was stagnated because anyone who tries to go there, they feel alienated. This has been the case with Kolkata as well. Kolkata has faced that, which has led to the deindustrialization of Kolkata eventually. And now,
Is it because of the language or because of the politics of the left government there?
no, but then language forms a major weaponry at the hands of the various political parties because they know
But left parties
but
traditionally
I feel,
do not play this linguistic politics, or do they?
in Kolkata it was there. Because
Mukesh
if you
sir.
take a look at Kolkata,
Was it only based on the language or it was based on their ideology or
ideology was there.
anti-capitalism?
Stigmatization of capital was there in Kolkata. That is reality. Any industries.
No, I just want for my audience to be
Yeah.
clear. Kolkata did not grow. Was it because of language, or there was a barrier, or was it because of the anti-capitalism narrative? Of
Anti-capitalism was a major aspect of it. But the thing with Kolkata was, at that point of time, the entire migrant population in Kolkata was coming from the northern part of the country. So they would not face that much of a divide per se. Later on, what happened, what was observed was that there was an extreme case of your own cultural identity to be protected, where there is an otherization within the society. This came much more prominent in Mumbai. Now Mumbai, if you observe in the past decade, the political parties are not exploiting that language differences anymore to that extent that they would do maybe a couple of decades back.
Because the ones that did, they reaped the political dividends out of it.
Right, they did.
Yes.
You had that, but the city suffers. The region
Absolutely,
suffers.
yes.
So for any region to
Do
continue
you mean
to,
when you say city suffers, do you mean Bombay or Mumbai is not developed today?
No.
Or let's say Calcutta is not developed?
Has it achieved the potential that it was?
In that
understand,
case,
we can
I would
be-
argue that migration is happening because some of the states are not performing well.
True.
So why are you blaming the states where you're moving in?
Sir, it is not about
Why
blame.
not you blame the state where you're residing then?
Sir, it is not about blame. Understand this, that we want all the places to grow as much as they can. And your argument that certain states have not been able to utilize the fund, certain states are not growing well, it
That
is
is
a
regional
reality.
inequality, that is a separate issue
there
altogether.
is an, and I would give a very simple example, sir. Let's suppose you have 5 kids in the house. Few of them are topping the exams, they are doing everything well. 3 to 4 of them, they are lagging behind. So what should be the approach? What should be the overall
How many children
approach?
will you have? Our argument is, and by the way, because of this kind of issue itself, now Andhra Pradesh wants more children. They've already made certain amendments. So again, I'll come back to the same point. We should not keep on arguing that there should be a common language or a link language, because that will definitely lead to more divide rather than progress in the economy.
But let me ask you something beyond language. What is your complaint against the central government or successive central governments? Why do you feel that South India is being discriminated against?
In the sense, sir, again, I'll go back to the overall point. It's not just only about language per se. It's about, let's say, perceiving us as the people with the different entities. I'll just give you my personal experience. When I was in Delhi, I'll not take the name of the institute, but I was basically pointed out as a Madrasi.
Totally
I told
incorrect.
the faculty straight saying that I'm not a Madrasi, I'm from Karnataka.
That's what citizens from Northeast would also feel.
Yes,
all
yes,
of them
yes.
are called
That's the
Chikis.
reason. That's the reason I'm saying let's not make any changes to what we are doing right now. We have progressed. If the argument was if you're not open, then you will suffer, then does it not mean that we are the third largest economy by PPP? Is it not a false narrative?
So are you ready to
then
agree
for
that
the
we
record,
have
that is
progressed to the potential that we could?
Sir, please understand this. Whether we are progressed to the potential or not, it doesn't only depend on the language. It doesn't depend only on migration.
And also, Mukesh,
there are
sir-
certain parameters which have held us back. In that case, what will you say about, let's say, Bimaru states?
Yes.
What will you say about skilling problem in India? So let's
what's
be honest
the
here.
solution in that case?
But
Sir,
One
let me
Just one
let me
point,
come
sir.
in 1 minute.
For
one
the
minute,
record.
1 minute. 1 minute.
He wants to put me in a difficult
No,
position.
I just want to say that what happened
When
to you
you
was
use
disgusting.
these terms, Bimaru states, are you also not denying?
Yes.
in a way?
Yes,
One-
yes,
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 sir.
he is.
absolutely.
Yes, okay.
The country.
Fully.
Who coined the Bimaru term? Who coined? We did not coin it.
Who coined the
So,
Madrasi
yes,
term?
point number one.
Is it
Point
that
number
we
one.
both coined the Madrasi
Point
term?
number one. Point number one. And second, this is not a derogatory word, by the way. Bimaru is an acronym. It
Then
is
Madrasi is not also
Madrasi should be
Madrasi,
considered
I'll tell you why
derogatory.
we are called as Madrasi. Because we are dark-skinned people. Bimaru is an acronym of state's name.
No,
Because
Madrasi are
that is
called
your
as because
perspective
we
of
mean
that.
Six states as well.
Sikh.
That's
yeah,
what how
Hindi
you
version.
see it.
Hindi version of that is
But
Sikh.
that may be
Why are
your
you using
perception,
Hindi,
sir.
sir, here?
So that's the reason. See, the problem is just like you don't like what we are doing, we don't like what you are doing.
So
Sir,
what
I'll
should
be,
same
I'll be
argument.
very clear. I'll be
Solution
very clear.
is simple,
Sir,
sir.
I'll be very clear in saying one thing. What happened to you in Delhi?
Yeah.
What is happening in Delhi today is disgusting, and it is a lack of sensitization and understanding of the Indian culture.
I think that is where we can all agree that
Yeah,
any
that is-
extreme
yes.
ideology
Extreme is
is
not-
extreme.
And sir, this
stand
is where I come back to my point. Unless and until the socio-cultural economic roots are solved, it will be politicized. Political groups, vigilante groups will exploit this.
And generally, what I've seen is you will take certain instances that have happened in Bangalore and you generalize the whole
generalize it.
Karnataka is that way. We don't do that. Okay, North India, somebody has killed someone. All of them are not like that. We know that.
But you spoke of your experiences at
Yeah,
Delhi
I
Institute.
experienced that. I experienced that
Sir,
first
this
time.
is
That's the
where-
reason
this
I
is where
feel.
when we are saying we are somehow dividing ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
That is
the
the-
point that
that is
I
the
wanted
point.
to raise.
Yeah.
We're all Indians.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is
for
the
the
point.
same land.
Yes.
This you and me or we and us, this should not be part of the narrative.
True.
Yes.
We should all work together. How can this nation develop and grow? And that will bring us to the end of this face-off. But before we do that, a quick one-line conclusion on this debate, Abhishek sir.
So I'll just say one thing, which is that imposition of anything is bad. Linguistic politics in India has always been something which invokes emotion. So politicians will always play this card. We all have to go beyond this politics. When we talk about Hindi and the concept of learning other languages, we all should be open to it. I think what was the solution of Indira Gandhi was nice, which was the three language policy. However, that was sidetracked by adding foreign languages. North India should learn one or the other South Indian languages.
Again, you're imposing it. Should.
If it push comes to shove, if there is a need for state policy, where I believe that there is no need, language is a personal issue. Politics of it is for vote bank politics, and that should not dictate people's behavior. So, for the record, the idea is that Hindi's imposition or Hindi's push is something where it is state policy. It should not be generalized for a specific region. North India itself is quite diverse. Hindi may be a language which is spoken and understood, but in rural parts of Rajasthan, MP, even most of Northeast India and East India does not understand Hindi the way we understand it. We also have learned Hindi in our school processes. The solution to this is sensitizing the generations coming through. This has to be done because maybe we are a lost generation. But the students who are coming through a certain curriculum, they can be sensitized. If not imposed, they can be sensitized to this issue that imposition, so that if I sit in a cab in Karnataka, I should not be expecting that person. I should be understanding. So it is a matter of sentiment. It is all about optics. It's about perspective.
But he said the final word, not the final essay.
Yeah.
Well, you cut me short. You cut me short, so I'll take in that time. So the basic point here is,
But you are not giving any conclusion.
the conclusion is that imposition of Hindi, or be it Tamil, be it Kannada, be it any language, is problematic. Let it
So
be.
what you're saying, if Hindi should not be imposed,
No language
on the
should be
unwilling
imposed.
population in the South India, migrants coming to Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh should also not be forced to learn the local language.
Yes, true.
Live and let live.
And what
let
hap-
the two individuals communicating decide which language they
Yes.
want to communicate in.
Yes.
It can be even without any language, sign language.
And the exceptions will always exist. Extremes are always there. Like an incident in Karnataka should not be generalized for all Kannadigas. What happened to Shyam sir should not be the generalization for everybody in Delhi. Delhi itself is quite problematic when it comes to cultural understandings. As he said, for Gurugram and Noida, it would not be language but something else for which they're fighting. So the simple point is, as Mukesh sir is now becoming impatient, is that imposition is problematic. Let's keep it simple. Let it be the choice of a student coming through the ranks of schools. Schools should not do politics, wherein what happened during the 60s was school did politics, which is rather than introducing the third language as a South Indian language, they gave us French, and I learned French in school because I did not have an option. I would have, and I'm still willing.
Can you say a few words in French?
Comment tu t'appelles? Je m'appelle Abhishek.
Okay. Before coming to Mukesh sir, we also asked Hima Bindu ma'am, who speaks Telugu, and Asta ma'am, who also speaks Hindi. What is their take on this language war? Listen in.
Hello everyone. I would like to share some of my experiences with Hindi. In our state Telangana, most of the school-going kids read Hindi as their first language and the mother tongue Telugu as their second language. But the people from Rajasthan or Haryana cannot imagine reading Telugu as their first language. And when I worked as a UPSC faculty in Delhi, though the medium of instruction was English, my co-faculty could comfortably switch to Hindi whenever they wanted to crack a joke or motivate the students, or when an appropriate English word doesn't strike to them. But I could not imagine occasionally switching to Telugu. I had to completely depend only on English. This definitely limited my interaction with the students. And most importantly, in the national examinations, the questions will be given in English and Hindi. And sometimes when the question is difficult, a Hindi student can try to understand it from the translation. A non-Hindi student will not have this advantage. This is imposition of Hindi on the non-Hindi states. And one must understand the difference between rejecting Hindi and rejecting the imposition of Hindi. One argument in favor of Hindi is that it is needed to unite India. But imposing one language on everyone does the exact opposite. It actually divides us. And finally, the opposition to Hindi should not be seen as the action, rather it should be seen as the reaction to imposition of Hindi. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the question. I have a few observations when it comes to this particular topic. First things first, whenever we think about the factors that contribute to regionalism or a regional identity being formulated, for instance, the feeling of affiliation towards a local culture, towards a local language, as well as creating or feeling a sense of resentment towards the other. Someone who does not speak the same language, someone who does not belong to the same place, which is why we have been seeing these instances of hatred, of discrimination on the basis of language throughout the country. But the real question I feel is language the only factor or the dominant factor creating this kind of discontent? When we talk about regionalism and the factors that do contribute to it, we say that the most important and pressing factor is actually economic deprivation, or at least a sense of economic or material deprivation, as we call it. So I feel that is something that affects the locals very, very directly. Now, for instance, there are debates about the North and South divide when it comes to the Finance Commission recommendations and the devolution of the proceeds of the taxes. Of course, there is a perceived sense of injustice where the southern states generally complain that maybe we have been penalized for taking up population control measures, because population is an important criteria for the devolution of those taxes. Now, I understand a local Kannadiga or a local Telugu speaking person might not know about these intricacies, for example, the Finance Commission. But that person at least knows one basic fact, which is that if I have a limited economy, if I have a city where there are finite jobs, where there is finite land as a resource, when more and more people are going to be coming in to my state, into my city, I will have to compete with those sections. So the competition for scarce resources is the underlying factor that creates that kind of discontent against the other, which is why we hear of a lot of the doctrines such as the son of the soil theories, right? The local reservations that we hear of, for example, in Maharashtra, in Haryana, so on and so forth. So there may be, now where does language come into play? Language comes into play because language is an easy identifier. Language is also an easy way of mobilizing the masses to strengthen certain political demands. It's very easy to identify the other, someone who's not the same language speaker, and that's why language becomes a mobilizing tactic per se, while it has, of course, certain implications on the kind of regional identity, but there are certain other issues. For instance, even example of Assam. Now, there is a lot of tension, conflict between the Assamese, the local Assamese indigenous population versus the Bengali speaking population, the migrants, the immigrants. But the main cause of concern is limited land as resources, increase in competition for the same jobs. So what I'm bringing home, the point that I'm bringing home is that there are multiple factors that lead to a regional identity that is created and the discontent that we see in today's time. Another important point is demographic changes, the same thing that I was talking about. For instance, there is sometimes not just on the basis of language, but a lot of states we see an anti-Bihari sentiment, just because of the fact that Bihar is a state where the population is booming, while southern states where the population is limited. So people from Bihar find a lot of job opportunities, and that is why there is a lot of migration trend. So demographics also play an important role in increasing those insecurities, which use language as a pretext sometimes to, in a way, showcase their discontent. Another point which is very important is that the kind of disrespect is mutual. For instance, if people from the north accuse people from the south to not be so warm towards them while they're visiting their cities, people from the north also sometimes are not sensitive to even know the differences that exist south of the Vindhyas. They call it a monolithic identity of people from the south, while there are varied cultures, for example, Telugu speaking cultures, the Malayali culture, everything. So in that context, I think mutual respect also has to be developed for countering this particular problem. Another aspect of this is a very interesting point between language and religion per se. For instance, when we were being formed as a new country, we witnessed the horrors of partition, and after partition, where two nation states were created, it was also assumed, or not just assumed, it was in a way the propaganda was that Pakistan is a majority Muslim state and therefore will be favoring Muslims, and India will be a country with a Hindu population or majority Hindu population. In fact, even in the colonial times, when we talk about the colonial histories that were written, we associate, and when Pakistan declared their national language to be Urdu, there were insecurities that maybe India declares the national language to be Hindi. So in this way also we see that now languages are being given certain communal overtones. So any kind of blanket imposition or coerced imposition of any language as a national language might also create not just linguistic minorities related insecurities, but also might create certain insecurities in the religious minorities as well. Of course, we are aware of a lot of examples where any kind of imposed coercive imposition of a language has gone in a very bad manner. For instance, the civil strife in Sri Lanka, for example, the creation of Bangladesh because of the imposition of a certain language. So those are examples right in front of us. Now, when it comes to what to do, what would be the solution per se? I think the solution would simply be that we need time to evolve as a society. We need to ask ourselves questions. Is there even a need, while everything has been going on fine all these years, where we have respected the diversity of languages that we have, we've also recognized it formally in our constitution, the 8th schedule. Is there even a need for a national language? Also, if there is, what we need to evolve as a society, we need to make sure that our sentiments attached to a language, our cultural sensitivities, are a matter of our private sphere. While when we talk about a public sphere, we need to maybe see language or the question of that one unifying language on the basis or on parameters such as efficiency, such as ease of medium, such as for instance the ease of global integration. So on those counts, if we discuss this particular topic as a nation, we can develop some amount of consensus on it. So consensus and not coercion should be the way forward. And I also feel a nation can take some time to come to a composite culture, that what is actually Indian culture. Yes. So, and also one form of in a way reducing the insecurities of people is by just giving them time. So I just feel that as a nation state, we can take all the time that we need. We do not have to come to a hurried decision. As the preamble also says, the power lies within us. It's we the people. It's not we just the Telugu speaking people. It's not we just the Hindi speaking belt. It's not just we the Kannada speaking people. It's we the citizens of India. And therefore we should address this question as and when we are a matured democracy to actually understand what does actually language solve a purpose. What is the purpose of using a language? So consensus, not coercion, should be the way ahead.
Mukesh sir, what's your final conclusion?
Final conclusion is, again, I go against the imposition of anything.
Do you need an apology from Shyam sir because of what happened to you in Bangalore?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
If he seeks apology, then I'll seek apology from his side regarding what happened to me in Delhi.
You are very radical, sir.
Absolutely not. But then I would like to make the point that a society will grow, a language will grow when it is inclusive, when it is not treating or dividing the society as otherization. And the very debate, for example, which is raging in metropolitan cities like Bengaluru, where today if you dare speak the name Bangalore, that also is one of the areas where you will be judged. You have to say Bengaluru. In those areas.
What's wrong with that? If Bengaluru is the original name of the city,
absolutely,
and
No
the colonial government distorted
absolutely
these names.
Absolutely, I that is why I always use the name Bengaluru. But my point is, the debate which has been
You also feel the same if I will mispronounce your name.
Absolutely. So my point is going beyond Bengaluru now, if we can. So
We can't.
the debate which is raging around and which has captured the imagination of the masses is about a language, maybe Kannada versus Hindi. That in itself defeats the purpose that is being made, that unity in diversity. Kannada is not a uniform language in the entirety of Karnataka. We have to be mindful of that.
Dialects are
So when you are expecting someone to be knowing Kannada, what about the other local cultures? For example, Kurgi. What happened to that? Isn't it?
When in court, speak Kurgi.
So that's where, when you are in different parts of the country, you should not be expected to
No,
communicate.
this is not my position. I'm anticipating this
Sir,
answer.
but what is
I'm
your
sure
position?
your position is not.
Sir, but what is your position?
That we will discuss later. Because my position doesn't matter. Sham sir,
So I feel it's not a joke
you have
for
shown your radical self.
many of the students will say that I thought he was silent, but he's very violent. So I will
Do you
still
watch Bollywood movies?
Yes, sir.
Dubbed or in?
No proper Bollywood. Sir, I love Hindi movies. I watch Kannada movies. I watch Telugu, Tamil. I'm accepting in that way.
And we are also.
So the argument is, it's not a joke for India after, let's say, 200 years of British rule to become a third largest economy, or the fifth largest, or becoming a developed country by 2047. And we have been able to do that with different languages, different identities throughout India. Because at the end of the day, the beauty of India is diversity. And I feel either by imposing or by announcing, or even minute changes in this way or that way, where it might give a feeling that there is an imposition, we are going to destroy that diversity. And I feel overall, the net outcome will be more harm will be done rather than benefiting from it.
Chetan sir,
Yeah. So I have, I think, 3 points to
do you think
conclude,
Sham sir is a strong candidate for a prime minister election?
which is much needed. We have had
will
only
not
2
allow-
prime ministers from South India. So
So
we
sir,
would
here
need
also,
more
in terms
representation.
of prime ministers, we are lagging behind.
Sir, just
Yes.
to add one thing, that we are still
Now
trying
I am asking.
that they are still trying
The
to
final essay
You
is
said
left.
it's your
They're
last
still-
point.
The final
They're
essay
still
is
trying
left.
to shake off the British divide and rule, and I think we all still need to be very, very wary of linguistic divide and rule.
Yes.
This is a very important point I want to make, because
That's
when he said
you are a student and a teacher of history. That's what Ramachandra Guha also writes. He cites the examples of our neighborhood. Even language Bengali, even the religion, let's say, could not unite the West and the East Pakistan because Bengali was not respected.
culturally different.
What happened in Sri Lanka, where the Sinhalese majority dominated and the Tamil minority was left behind. There was a civil war which finally ended in 2009. Same in Myanmar. So language is an emotional issue, and if you do not respect all the languages, whether spoken by the majority or the minority, it is going to play a very divisive role in the society's progress.
Destructive, sir.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
perhaps the reason why India continued to flourish is because we recognize states on the grounds of language.
Yes.
Maybe that's the reason, and credit to those who thought of such a compromise.
The Fazal Ali Commission.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so coming to my conclusion, a few points, and I need a few minutes to clarify the points. Point number 1, we completely discourage the militant way of enforcing a language.
Now you're speaking like a spokesperson of the Kannada Pride.
Be it Kannada, be it Hindi, or any language for that matter, there should be no kind of imposition. A debate is fine, whether the language is getting respect or not, whether there is an imposition or not, but taking it on the streets and using violence to justify that is pure politics. So complete discouragement on that part. But that's what political parties do. For example, the Karnataka's reservation bill, they capitalized on the sentiment which had been built up between Kannadigas and the non-Kannadigas, which again, most Kannadigas don't support, because we know that the growth of the state, the city has happened because of the migrant workers, the cosmopolitan nature of our state and culture. So that is one point. Second, Mukesh sir was pointing out that it appears that as if it's an exclusionary debate where Kannadigas are being conservative, being close to outside influence. But let me correct you, sir, that's not the case, because this is more of a counter reaction, not the reaction to begin with. So it started, as I said earlier, in the 90s and early 2000s, where the localites felt that outsiders are not giving enough respect to their language. And after
But
that,
if we do not restrict it to Karnataka, there was no liberalization, privatization, globalization in Madras
right.
When the anti-Hindi agitation started. Was it also the feeling of being left out or denigrated, or it was simply a mechanism to preserve their culture?
Tamil Dravidian nationalism goes on a completely different trajectory. I think there the causes are not just economic, it's more rooted in culture and the social values. But I'm just talking about the context of Bangalore and Karnataka here. So, as I said, Kannadigas have always been more than open and welcoming of every outside culture. In fact, the language itself has a lot of outside influence from German to Sanskrit. Right? So, and this is a language which has a rich literary tradition that has produced 8 Jnanpith awardees. After Hindi, I think if I'm not wrong, Kannada has the highest number of Jnanpith awardees. So the language, the culture has been welcoming. But when they've sensed, again, as I said, it could be real or perceived as well. When they sense that there is an assault on their language, when outsiders are growing, they're not respecting them. That is where I feel this counter reaction came out. Again, not from the entire section of the Kannadigas, but from a small section. We can't generalize. Be it north or south, generalization never works. So that social division which opened up, which is rooted in cultural, economic divisions, has been capitalized politically. So to address this, there should not be any national language or a declaration of a linked language. It is not necessary, as Sham sir, Mukesh sir correctly pointed out. There is no need for that. Because that is when the minorities feel threatened. They feel a sense of insecurity. And I feel there is no need for a national or linked language.
That's about it.
So, but before you end, what is your stand on this?
Being the fact that none of us are native Hindi speakers. None of us.
None of us, actually, yes.
So, finally, even I think the students would be interested to know what is your take on this entire thing.
No comments. I don't want
No, you are not coming out
that
of
is
this.
being too safe.
No, personally, I have stayed in Bangalore for more than a decade now. Have I ever faced discrimination at the hands of the localites? Never. Have I ever faced discrimination on the ground of my language or the color of my skin? Never. Have I been welcomed into this state? Absolutely yes. I particularly love Tamil Nadu, Chennai, a fantastic place where I was more welcomed than any other state. But I do understand the politics of it, the narrative of it, that there are individuals, groups, communities in the south of India who may feel discriminated when it comes to their culture, when it comes to their language. I think the solution can be what was prescribed in 1960s. There are 2 official languages of the Union, which is Hindi and English. There is no such thing as national language. And this debate on Hindi imposition should end once and for all. Maybe there can be an innovative solution. If there is the parliament is in Delhi, let the Supreme Court be in Chennai, and let the central secretariat be in Assam or Arunachal. If it is in Arunachal, it can send an even bigger signal to China. So maybe that can be a solution.
But sir, what would be your solution for other, let's say, grievances that many of the states in southern India have? Let's say in terms of allocation of the funds.
Delimitation should not happen. It is supposed to happen in 2026, but I think there should be another constitutional amendment. Give it to the future generation, let them decide. Let's say impose either a permanent freeze on delimitation. We don't need more than 543 MPs in Lok Sabha. No delimitation, no further increase in the number of seats in Lok Sabha, for that matter, for any state. That's what you want.
No, he's asking about the allocation of funds.
That was one part of it, both. What about other areas?
Which areas?
Let's say funding.
Population should not be the only criteria. But it also should not mean that those who need more funds, more support, as you said, the Bimaru states, should we just let them feed for themselves? There has to be encouragement. The center has to support them. But also at the same time there should be some incentives for the good performing states in the southern India. They should also be incentivized for doing good.
I think the new Finance Commission is including or considering including incentives.
As of now, they are yet to decide on anything. That's the reason day before yesterday in a consultation when they had with Tamil Nadu, the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu said we want a new parameter. How much does the state contribute to GDP? Include that as well to allocate.
A demographic
because
performance.
Obviously, they will get better allocation if contribution to GDP comes into picture. And they also said, why are you considering the 2011 population as a parameter?
Should go back to 1971.
Go back to 1971. Right? That was a standard. Let's use that particular standard.
Or maybe have a dual capital for this country, like Delhi and Chennai, or Sorry.
Why not Bangalore? Why not Bangalore?
Bangalore also. But I think Chennai because they have more grievances than people from.
Sir
So
is
isn't
biased
it like
towards
a kind of an
Chennai.
appeasement thing that you
Sir,
are?
You have to appease people in a democracy.
Sir,
Yes,
Shyam sir has
nobody
to say
should be
something
left
to
out. So if I have got some grievances, it's like your child feels discriminated against and you don't give a damn. You have to listen to your child and tell him or her that what is your problem, what are your grievances, I'm here to solve them.
And if you think shifting it to Chennai, won't it lead to grievances in maybe Bangalore or
Bangalore.
By that
Hyderabad?
logic, you will never be able to solve this. But at least people from South India would feel that it is not the imposition from North India. So we are getting our due as well.
So Shyam sir wants to say something to you.
is it fair to say that you're biased towards Tamil then?
Yes.
Not even, let's say Hindi or Kannada, now you will basically say, let's impose Tamil across India.
No, I'm against imposition. But look at the beautiful language that Tamil, some of the words in Kannada, they're borrowed from Tamil. So is the case with Telugu and Malayalam. And what I have heard and observed is that if you speak Tamil, you will be in a position to understand Malayalam, Telugu, Kannada as well.
Very, very.
So what's wrong with that?
So we found the solution, sir. Tamil.
So there is a solution on this. So there is a solution on this platform. Yes. Should you wish to solve the problem once and for all, listen into this podcast. And if you have enjoyed this session, then do not forget to press the like button. Drop in your comments as to what is your take on this language war or perceived language war between Hindi and other South Indian languages. And do not forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. Thank you. All the best. Bye-bye.